licenses that pertained to the gyro were in order, but there was trouble over Fred's personal documents. His ration book contained far too few sales validations. "You're not doing your share of consuming, old timer," the young cop said mildly. "Look at all these unused food allotments. Want to cause a depression?" "No." "Man, if you don't eat more than this, we'll have mass starvation." "I know the slogans." "Yes, but do you know the penalties? Forced feeding, compulsory consumption. Do you think they're fun?" "No." "Well, you can file your flight plan and go, but if you don't spend those tickets before their expiration dates, mister, you'll have cause to regret it." With a special pencil he sense marked the card's margins. Fred felt that each stroke of the pencil was a black mark against him. He watched in apprehensive silence. The young cop was also silent. When finished, he wordlessly returned the identification, tipped his cap, and swaggered off, his thick neck red above his green collar. Fred found he'd had more than enough of swaggering young men with beefy red necks. That added to his disgust with the constant struggle to produce and consume and produce. Vague, wishful threats froze as determination. He absolutely wasn't going through any more of it. He filed a flight plan that would return him to his home, and in due course arrived there. The phone rang in his ears as he opened the cockpit. He didn't want to answer, and he stayed on the roof securing the gyro and plugging in its battery charger. But he couldn't ignore the bell's insistent clamor. When he went downstairs and switched on the phone, George Harding's round face splashed on the wall. "Fred," he said, "when we talked a few hours ago, you forgot to say you were sick. I phoned to confirm that for the attendance report. Did this call get you out of bed?" He could see it hadn't. Therefore, Fred knew he must be recording the audio only, and not the video, trying to give him a break with the attendance people and coach him on the most appeasing answers. A well-meant gesture, but a false one, and Fred was fed up with the false. "I forgot nothing," he said bluntly. "I'm perfectly well and haven't been near bed." "Now wait," George said hastily. "It's no crime to be sick. And, don't say anything you wouldn't want preserved for posterity." "George, I'm not going to play along with you," Fred insisted. "This business of producing to consume and consuming to produce has got me down. It's beyond all reason." "No, it isn't. You're an excellent mechanical engineer, Fred, but you're not an economist. That's why you don't understand. Just excuse me for a minute, and I'll show you." He left the field of view. Fred waited incuriously for him to return, suddenly conscious of the fact that he now had nothing better to do with his time. George was back in less than a minute, anyhow. "Okay," he said briskly. "Now, where were we? Oh, yes. I just wanted to say that production is a form of consumption, too, even the production of machine tools and labor-saving devices. So there's nothing inconsistent—" "What are you trying to do?" Fred demanded. "Don't lecture me. I know as much econ as you do." "But you've got to come back to work, Fred. I want you to use your rations, put your shoulder to the wheel, and conform generally. The policing's too strict for you to try anything else, fella, and I like you too well to want to see you—" "I don't need you to protect me, George," Fred said stiffly. "I guess you mean well enough, but goodbye." He switched off. The silence struck him. Not a sound stirred the air in that lonely new house except the slight wheeze of his breathing. He felt tired, bone weary, as if all the fatigues of his 86 years were accumulated within him. He stood by a window and stared blindly out. Everyone seemed to have been heckling him, shoving him around, making him change all his ways every minute. He didn't want to change. He didn't want to be forever adapting to new gadgets, new fads, new ways of doing things. He thought of the villages of India, substantially unchanged for 3, 4, 5,000 years. The villagers had no money, so they couldn't be consumers. Maybe they had the natural way to live, statically. Also frugally. But no, it was too frugal, too static. He'd heard and read too much about the starvation, pestilence, peonage, and other ills plaguing those Indian villagers. They didn't have life licked, either. The Indians had not enough, the Americans too much. One was as bad as the other. And he was in the middle. He left the window he'd been staring from unseeingly and walked to the foyer control panel. There he pushed the button that would cause the house to rear 100 feet into the air on its titanium aluminum plunger. Then he went back to the window to watch the ground recede. He felt a hand on his shoulder. He decided the sensation was an illusion, a part of his state of mind. A young man's voice said, "Mr. Lubway, we need you." That was a nice thing to hear, so Fred turned, ready to smile. He didn't smile. He was confronted by another ration cop. This one was a tall young man, dark and hefty. He seemed very kindly, in his official sort of way. "Mr. George Harding sent me," he explained. "He asked us to look you up and see if we could help." "Yes?" "You seem to have been a little unhappy this morning. I mean, well, staring out that window while your house rises dangerously high. Mr. George Harding didn't like the mood you're in, and neither do I, Mr. Lubway. I'm afraid you'll have to come to the hospital. We can't have a valuable citizen like you falling out that window, can we?" "What do you mean, valuable citizen? I'm no use to anybody. There's plenty of engineers, and more being graduated every semester. You don't need me." "Oh, yes, we do." Shaking his head, the young ration cop took a firm grip of Fred's right biceps. "You've got to come along with me till your outlook changes, Mr. Lubway." "Now see here," Fred objected, trying unsuccessfully to twist free of the officer's grip. "You've no call to treat me like a criminal, nor to talk to me as if I were senile. My outlook won't change, and you know it." "Oh, yes, it will. And since you're neither criminal nor senile, that's what has to be done." "We'll do it in the most humane way possible. A little brain surgery, and you'll sit in your cage and consume, and consume, and consume without a care in the world. Yes, sir, we'll change your outlook." "Now, you mustn't try to twist away from me like that, Mr. Lubway. I can't let you go. We need every consumer we can get." End of Waste Not, Want by Dave Dreyfus.